In the final night, before the world changed forever, Pompeii lay beneath a sky so calm and ordinary that nothing within it hinted at the violence waiting patiently below the earth. And the city breathed slowly in its sleep as stone walls held the warmth of the day and released it gently into the air, while narrow streets worn smooth by centuries of footsteps rested in silence, broken only by the distant sound of the sea, and inside modest homes and grand villas alike will. Lamps flickered softly before being extinguished one by one, plunging painted rooms into darkness where frescoed gods and heroes watched over sleeping bodies that trusted the night completely. And Mount Vesuvius stood above them all, dark and unmoving, its slopes softened by vineyards and farms, appearing not as a threat, but as a familiar presence that had shaped the land and fed the people for generations. And because it had slept longer than living memory could recall, it inspired comfort rather than fear. And so no one looked up at it with suspicion as they closed their eyes. And earlier that day, small tremors had passed beneath the city like distant echoes, subtle enough to be ignored, because earthquakes were not strangers here, and memory had taught the people that the ground sometimes spoke without meaning harm, and animals sensed something deeper, something older stirring below. But humans trusted routine more than instinct, and routine whispered that tomorrow would arrive as it always had, with sunlight spilling into courtyards and voices returning to the streets. And so children fell asleep clutching wooden ties, their dreams filled with simple wonders, while parents lay beside them thinking of markets, debts, celebrations, and nothing more. And bakers slept near their ovens, their hands still dusted with flour, and sailors rested with the salt of the sea lingering in their hair. And in taverns the last embers faded into ash as the final guest stumbled home beneath stars that burned clearly in the sky. And Pompeii became a collection of quiet moments stitched together by breathing and heartbeat, each one ordinary and therefore precious, and beneath it all the earth tightened, pressure rising slowly as molten stone pushed upward through ancient paths, unheard and unseen, gathering strength not in sudden violence but in patience. And the mountain waited, and the hours drifted past midnight into the deepest part of the night where sleep grows heavier and dreams grow softer, and the city surrendered fully to rest, unaware that this surrender would be eternal. And as dawn crept closer, the air grew strangely still, as if the world itself had paused to listen. And in that pause, Pompeii existed at its most vulnerable, defenseless not because of weakness, but because of trust. And in grand houses, marble floors reflected faint moonlight, while slaves slept on simple mats nearby, sharing the same fate without knowing it. And in courtyards, fountains stood silent, their waters unmoving, and even the insects seemed quieter than usual, as though nature itself sensed what humans could not, and far below the surface magma pressed upward, carrying heat and gas and fury older than history, and the mountain that had once given life. prepared to take it back, and yet above ground everything remained peaceful, almost tender. And this contrast between calm and destruction is what makes the final night of Pompeii so haunting. Because there was no warning cry, no dramatic farewell, no last chance to understand, only sleep, deep and trusting. And when the first light of morning began to pale the eastern sky, Pompeii still lay unawares. People suspended between yesterday and tomorrow. And then, without mercy or announcement, the mountain broke its silence, tearing itself open with a force so immense that it shattered the sky. But that moment belongs to another story. Because here in this night, Pompeii still exists, whole, still alive, still breathing softly beneath the stars, and as centuries pass and ash hardens into stone, preserving bodies in the shapes of their final moments, what remains most powerful is not the violence of the eruption, but the quiet that came before it. The knowledge that an entire city went to sleep believing in tomorrow and never woke to see it. And today, when we walk those streets frozen in time, we do not hear screams first. We hear silence, the echo of breathing, the memory of lamps going dark. And in that silence, Pompeii continues to rest, eternally caught in its final night, unchanged, unmoving, waiting beneath the mountain that still watches over it, reminding us that history does not always end with noise, but sometimes with a whisper, fading gently into darkness, carrying with it the last peaceful breath of a city that never knew it was saying goodbye.